special episode of Sunny is freezing to death but has some Star Wars books to talk about. I have 4 things to talk about in this video. If this is the first time you're seeing me, my name is Sunny and I am attempting to go through all of Star Wars within the year 2026. We are currently on phase 3 of the High Republic. Thus far we have gotten through phase 2 and most recently last week we finished up phase 1. The first book I want to talk to you guys about is The Eye of Darkness by George Mann. This is the first thing in the High Republic phase 3. I started and finished this on March 1st, so this is what started off my month and I quite enjoyed it. My main critique with this book the first time I read it last year when I was going through the High Republic for the first time was that it felt a little bit lackluster from what my expectations were. Going into it this time with my expectations correctly set, I did really enjoy this. There is definitely some action, especially towards the end. There are some really sad moments, and overall I thought that this one was really fun. I wish that Belle and Burry were in it just a little tiny bit more. I felt like they were lacking a little bit, but other than that, I really liked this one. This is either an A+ or an S-. Next, chronologically, Escape from Valo by Daniel Jose Older and Alyssa Wong. This is one of, if not the thickest middle grades book we have in the High Republic, and I'm not sure if that was completely necessary. This book is, I think, the most middle gradesy out of the middle grades books, and that is not a dig. This book feels very childish, but in the way that it is literally revolving around children. These children aren't even Padawan age yet, they're still younglings. It gets surprisingly dark in here, especially when the younglings start talking about like them having to survive a full year trapped on Valo in this random cave, or like them fighting for their lives. While I wasn't absolutely in love with this book, I didn't hate it by any stretch. It's just not one of my personal favorites. It was just a little bit too child-centric for my personal liking. I'm not the biggest fan of children in media usually. I think I'm gonna give it a C. Next, we have Defy the Storm by Justina Ireland and Tessa Gratton. I finished this one roughly 4 minutes ago, so it is still very much fresh. If I am being completely honest, I did not care for this one. At the speed I was listening to it, this book took 5.5 hours to get through, roughly, and I was so bored. There were a couple times where my attention was grabbed and I was fully locked in and invested in it, but overall I just truly could not care less about this plot, and that does kind of stink because I really liked the other book that they co-wrote, but this one really didn't land. There was too much going on. It all felt really boring. There's a ton of talking in this book and not a whole lot of doing. I think this is going to be firmly a D-. The last thing I want to talk to you about, I'm going to make sure I say the name of it correctly. The High Republic 2023 Volume 1, Children of the Storm. This is issues 1 through 5 of the Phase 3 Marvel comics. And just as a quick reminder for anyone who's new here, I do not have access to the Dark Horse comics, so they are not included in this chronological order journey that we're doing. I really enjoyed the back half of issue 4 and all of issue 5. I don't have a lot to say about those first couple issues, but the back half of 4 and the top of 5 took this in a really unexpected direction for me. If the vibe keeps going from here, I think that I'm going to really enjoy the back half of this. There are only 10 issues. There are a couple other mini series for phase 3, but there's not nearly as many as there were for phase 1. That is where we are at right now in phase 3. If you want to follow along with this Star Wars chronological journey, make sure you press the follow button. Again, thank you so much for being here, and as always, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. Let's talk about Temptation of the Force. As with everything I've read over the past couple months, this is being read as a part of my Star Wars Chronological Order 2026 journey, where I'm going through as much of Star Wars as I possibly can chronologically. That includes books, movies, series, games, comics, anything that I can get my hands on I am attempting to go through within the year 2026. Temptation of the Force by Tessa Gratton is one of the adult novels within the High Republic Phase 3. And before I go any further, I will give a general spoiler warning here. I'm not going to be talking about a ton of specifics, but we are going to be talking about the vague strokes of this book. If you want to avoid any information whatsoever, maybe save this video and come back when you're done, because I would hate for you to get a spoiler that you are not looking for. Temptation of the Force is largely picking up where Eye of Darkness left off. We are in the middle of trying to deal with the Nihil. There's this new threat of a blight that we don't know a lot about that is becoming a bigger and bigger issue. It seems like some Drengir have returned. even though the Jedi were under the impression that that was already handled. And altogether, this book has a lot of moving pieces, and not in a way that ever felt overwhelming, but there is definitely a lot happening. One of the main themes of this story, though, is the relationship between Avar Kriss and Elzar Mann. This relationship has been developing since Phase 1. Up until this point, we've gotten little tiny glimpses of it, mostly of Elzar trying to push down his romantic feelings for Avar. In this book, we get a lot more of Avar's perspective on this. One thing that I really love about Tessa Gratton's writing is that she is so good about writing love stories. When she's writing any relationship, not necessarily romantic, it always feels very authentic. And I think that she did a really good job taking this pre-existing relationship between Avar and Elzar and putting it into this book and moving it forward while not pushing it too far. I think what happens in this book, without giving too much away, doesn't feel at all rushed or unearned. It feels very justified. For me, this is going to be in S- territory for our tier list. To give it a number, I think I'm hovering around maybe 4.75. That is all I have to say about Temptation of the Force. I would love to hear all of your thoughts in the comments if you've read this one. If you want to follow along for this Star Wars chronological order journey, make sure you press the follow button, and as always, I will see you tomorrow. Bye! This year I'm attempting to go through all of Star Wars chronologically, and since I last checked in, I have read a ton of books. I know it doesn't look like a lot because I'm only holding 2, but I've read a lot digitally over the past couple days. So let's talk about everything that I've gone through. I'm not going to be talking about any of these things in detail, but I will be talking about all of them generally. It's been 2 days since I last checked in. I know there was a video posted yesterday, but that was technically from March 3rd, sorry. We have read 8 things. So I've got 8 things to talk to you about today. I'm going to keep this as brief as I possibly can. The first thing that I read post Temptation of the Force was Beware the Nameless by Zaretta Cordova. I really enjoyed this book, and I was not expecting to. And I would be lying to you if I said that most of the reason that I liked this so much was anything other than this guy right here, Churro the Hutt. For some reason, I have really been drawn to the Hutts recently, just as a race. Like, objectively, they're gross and I hate looking at them, but also like they're kind of cute and I love them. Churro specifically is such a sweet little guy. He's very timid, he's a science guy, he doesn't fit in with his family. Little bit of a spoiler, he gets to kind of be the savior of the day in this one, and I just think this whole story is really cute. I don't think I've disliked a single thing that Zaretta Cordova has written for Star Wars, and this one did not disappoint. A little bit selfishly, I'm gonna put this in S tier. I loved it. Next up, kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum, we have Tears of the Nameless by George Mann. It's a YA book that largely follows Rhys Silas as he gets closer to Aslan Rel, and they try to figure out what exactly is going on with the Drungir and the Blight and the Nameless, and kind of connecting all of these dots. The way that this book was narrated for the audiobook was just so flat and monotone the entire time. It didn't grab my attention at all. Would I have enjoyed this more if I read it? Probably, but we all know I'm an audiobook girl. That was never going to be an option. So for me, this is going to be a C-. Next, we have the Audible original Seeds of Starlight. I was not expecting to like this one as much as I did. I put this in S tier. I thought it was so fun. The main character's backstory is so interesting. Honestly, I really liked the plot of this too. Next thing that we were supposed to read was Chronicles of Corellia. This is a similar situation to Chronicles from the Occlusion Zone, which was a part of Phase 1. These were short stories originally published within Star Wars Insight. I was under the impression that these had been serialized and put out into a book, similar to how Starlight Stories was for Phase 1, but I was not able to find these anywhere, and unfortunately I do not have these specific issues of Star Wars Insider, so I couldn't read them. Next, back to back, we had issues 3 and 4 of The Edge of Balance. In general, I have liked all of this manga. There have definitely been some high points and some low points. Definitely liked Volume 3 more than Volume 4. I didn't like them as much as I liked Precedent, but they definitely weren't bad. I'm gonna put Volume 3 in A+, and Volume 4 probably in like an A or A-. We then finished up the High Republic 2023 comics with issues 6 through 10. This trade paperback, if you're wondering, is called The High Republic 2023 Volume 2 The Haunted. I really enjoyed this story. It leads really nicely to some of the next things on our list, and overall had a really good time with it. We then jumped back into the books with Haunted Starlight, the other Audible exclusive for the High Republic. That story deals with the same characters and the same general plot points as Seeds of Starlight. Didn't like this one nearly as much as I like Seas of Starlight. It wasn't bad, I just don't think that it was as attention grabbing. I'm gonna put this one in like B- tier. The final thing that I have consumed within the past 2 days is Tempest Breaker, the audio drama for Phase 3. And I feel like I need to issue this book an apology because in my review for Tempest Runner, I mentioned that I probably was not going to like this one, and I was wrong. I did really enjoy this. It took a little bit of time to get set up and ready, but this, in conjunction with those last couple issues of the High Republic 2023, flowed really, really nicely, and I really liked the amalgamation of characters we got in this and in the comics. I think that it's such a weird, like, ragtag group, but it really, really works. And that is everything that I have read within the past 2 days. If you have experienced any of these pieces of media, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. As always, I'd love to have you along for the rest of this chronological journey. If you want to backlog any of them, you can find them on my page, or if you just want to be here for the new stuff, make sure you press the follow button so you don't miss anything. Thank you so much for being here, and as always, I will see you tomorrow. Bye! I'm attempting to go through all of Star Wars in the year 2026, so let me tell you what I read today. Started off my morning with The High Republic Fear the Jedi, which came out in 2025. It's written by Kevin Scott. This is a tie-in kind of to Tempest Breaker and also to The High Republic 2023. I gave this an S tier. I really, really, really loved it. If you can tell on the cover here, my good friend Kelnaka from The Acolyte is in this one. When I went through The High Republic for the first time last year, I had not yet seen The Acolyte. And so I didn't really pick up on who Kelnaka was, knowing who he is now, and going through and listening to that book today, which we'll get to in a minute, and then also seeing him in this, I never even connected the dots that he would be here during this time, but like obviously he would be because he's a Wookiee and they live forever. I was so psyched. This was a really, really fun end to these characters' narratives. I think there is one more singular comic about them, but overall I think that this was so fun and it tied everything up really nicely. The big thing that I did today was go through the entirety of Into the Light by Claudia Gray. This is the last YA book in the High Republic, and I'll be honest, I did not love it, though I will say it's written by Claudia Gray, so obviously it's not going to be bad. The thing that I'm learning as I go through the High Republic Phase 3 for a second time is that I don't really care about the Blight or the Drengir. It just felt like something you knew was going to be handled, so there were very little stakes to it, if that makes sense. Like, obviously there is still stakes, and people are still like getting hurt and dying from both of these things, but it never felt like it was going to be something super drastic, because like I've watched The Phantom Menace. I know that neither of these things are a thing by that point, and it's not even a thing by the Acolyte, so obviously this had to be taken care of within these couple books. So in that way, those plot points don't really hit the same to me as the Nihil plot points do. While you know that the Nihil also aren't a thing during this point, feel a little bit more spontaneous and scary. I will say I do like the character decisions that were ultimately made in this, for Aslan, for Wreath, for the crew of the vessel, and also for Nan. As much as I haven't really enjoyed her character throughout the books that she's been in, I think that what she does in this one feels right for her character at this point in time. There were a couple moments in this book that I did really like, specifically all of the stuff that we got about Kelnaka and Buryaga being able to reconnect with Kashyyyk and being with other Wookiees. I feel like that was really fun. I think I'm going to give this a B. While the writing was good, the stakes just didn't feel as high as I feel like they need to be at the ending stages of this phase, but at the end of the day, this book is still well written and I did enjoy it enough. I would love to hear what you thought about Into the Light. If you've read it, make sure you leave it in the comments. If you want to follow along for this chronological journey, make sure you press the follow button, and as always, I will see you tomorrow. Bye! In the year 2026, I am attempting to go through as much of Star Wars as I possibly can, and today I am here to talk about A Valiant Vow by Justina Ireland, the second to last book for the High Republic Phase 3. I'm going to be talking generally about the plot of this book, but I'm not going to go into too much detail. Save this video and come back when you're done if you want to avoid any information whatsoever, but I'm going to try my best not to give any spoilers here. While I was going through this book, I completely lost the fact that this was a Justina Ireland book. It really doesn't read like any of their other works. It felt to me more of like a Zoraida Cordova, Daniel Jose Older / Alyssa Wong duo situation, and I was quite pleasantly surprised to see that it was one of Justina's, because I do really think that they thrive with these middle grades books. Very quick summary for this plot. We are following the younglings that we have been following for all of this phase, and this mostly takes place on Iriadu. They are attempting to get as many people off the planet that want to get off before they're like generational storms start happening, because once those storms pick up, no one can leave the planet for a while. Of course, other things pop up, mainly because the storm wall is down. There are a ton of scav droids going absolutely nuts that we have to handle. We also have this mysterious gray substance, which if you've read any of these books, we know is the Blight. And also the Nihil still exists, so that's obviously a threat that we have to deal with. I do really like the character progression that we got in this book, particularly with Tep Tep. She has never been my favorite youngling that we've been around, but in this one she felt like less of a child and I quite enjoyed her. This one doesn't have a ton to do with the overall story. With it being at the end of this phase, I was really hoping for it to be a little bit more connected to what I know is coming in Trials. Overall, this felt very much like Quest for Planet X to me, where I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the story, I enjoyed the characters, I enjoyed the writing, but it had basically nothing to do with the overarching plot. That is going to knock it down a few points in my mind for our overall ratings, but I'm still going to give it, I think, an A-. I enjoyed it, and that's what I thought about A Valiant Vow. If you've read this book, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate you, and as always, I will see you tomorrow. Bye! It only took me a week to get through the entirety of the High Republic Phase 3, and there are 2 things that I have not talked to you about, so let's get updated. If this is the first time you're seeing me and you're wondering why I'm speedrunning Star Wars books, it's because I am attempting to go through as much of Star Wars as I possibly can within the year 2026. If that sounds fun to you, you should press the follow button, because we will be doing this probably all year long. This video is mostly for the last book in the High Republic, Trials of the Jedi, but there is one thing that I have not spoken to you guys about, which I want to start with. So spoiler warning for Trials of the Jedi and the Edge of Balance Premonition. We're going to be talking about these kind of generally. With the book, I am going to bring up a couple specific things, so if you don't want spoilers for those things, save this video and come back when you're done. I would never want to give you a spoiler that you're not looking for. The Edge of Balance Premonition is one of the last manga for the High Republic, and I say one of because I believe this goes in between the 3rd and 4th volumes. So please feel free to correct me in the comments if that's not where it goes. As you can probably tell by the cover, this story follows Yoda and an encounter that he has with the Nameless. I thought that this story was so interesting. It's very rare that we see Yoda actually get to be a person. Felt like this one was really special because we actually got to see him show a little bit of emotion and have feelings like a normal being would, and I just feel like that's a side of Yoda we don't get a lot, and I really enjoyed it. All of that being said, it was kind of par for the course for any time we see a Jedi interact with the Nameless. I am being a little bit biased here because it was Yoda and I do like him. I'm going to give it a B- or C+. On to Trials of the Jedi, which if you have been following me for a hot minute, you know that I read this the day it came out. My whole thing last year was getting caught up with the High Republic in time for this dropping, which I believe was July 14th of last year. One of my big critiques for it, and also kind of just a critique I have for the High Republic Phase 3 in general, is that everything is building and building and building and building to this book, and it feels like not a whole lot could be accomplished because the big stuff had to happen here. We did slowly get things done, but they never felt as triumphant as they should have been. We never really got a chance to have like our party on Naboo moment, and that's what I kind of want when we have these big things, like when the storm wall came down, or when the Drengir were defeated, when the Blight was taken care of. It never felt like we truly got a hooray, we did something. And I understand partially that's because there are still other problems to be solved in these books, so we can't have our like really big final yippee. I also feel like this story could have benefited from celebrating the smaller moments, and it just didn't feel like we ever really got that, and thus me feeling like nothing was ever really achieved, even though things were done, obviously. The first time I read this, I was a little bit disappointed because it just kind of felt like it flatlined. That was why I was hesitant to make a review for it, because I love the High Republic as a whole, even though there are a lot of books in it that maybe aren't my favorite, and a lot of characters that maybe aren't my favorite. There are so many that are, and I just love this concept and this era, and I had a really great experience kind of mainlining all of these books in anticipation for this one. I think that my expectations going into this for the first time were just set a little bit too high. Going into it this time, remembering a lot about what happens in this book, I did have a better time with it. I think that the pacing is really good. There are some moments in this book that truly had me sobbing. Some of my favorites are all of the interludes that we get with the children about them like looking for their parents while the blight is taking over their world. Huge spoilers, so one more time, click away now if you don't want to hear it. Ember's chapter in this had me in shambles. Belle's sentence in the epilogue is just heartbreaking. Markion's whole epilogue is, I think, the best part of the book. And this has been a lot of complaints, but fully this is an S tier read for me. I'm still going to give it 5 stars. So it hasn't moved in my ranking at all from the first time that I read it. But what has changed is my mentality around it. When I rated this back in July ? I was rating it more for the experience that I had reading all of the other books, waiting for this one to come out, doing all the pre-release stuff, being there in that moment while everyone else was reading it for the first time and getting to talk about it and be in that hype. That is so unlike anything that I've experienced before, and it was really, really, really cool. The 5-star rating for it now is partially the remembrance of that time in my life, but also the fact that there are a ton of moments in this book that I really do like, and I don't think that those moments are overshadowed by the fact that I don't necessarily agree with the overall plot decisions. To say it a little bit more succinctly, I think that Phase 3 of the High Republic has problems with its pacing. Putting that all aside, on its own, and as the final chapter, this is a really, really good story. And because of that, I can't give it anything less than 5 stars. There's one more thing that I need to talk about, and that is the High Republic finale comic. It is a single comic issue. We don't have to get into it too much. It basically is wrapping up the stories of like Lorna D, Tarrant and Sarah, Tay Sarek, Skier, Keith Trennis, that whole group. Their story is kind of getting a little bit of an epilogue. But it was so fun. It is definitely an S tier, super cute comic. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Tell me if you liked Trials or not. Did you feel let down by it? Do you think it lived up to everything that Phase 3 was building up to? Like I said at the beginning, I am trying to get through as much of Star Wars as I possibly can this year, and really excitingly, we are getting into the Acolyte section. So if you want to be here for that and everything else we have post-Acolyte, make sure you press the follow button, and as always, I will see you tomorrow. Bye!